Hello students. In the last session, we have discussed how to conduct tensile test and how to conduct compression test on universal testing machine we have discussed. And also we have discussed the various points on a testing diagram. Okay. So what are the things we have discussed? Just see here. So in the last session, we have discussed tensile test and compression test on the universal testing machine UTM, and later we have discussed different features, that means different important points on a testing diagram, testing curve, which is drawn for a ductile material. So here we have taken mild steel. So these things are discussed in the previous session. So we know that what is a UTM and how to load the test specimen in tension test and compression test, and how to prepare a specimen, and how to conduct a compression test for a wooden block uh, by applying the load across the grains and along the grains. So these things already we have discussed, and also we have discussed the important points in a testing curve, that is what is a proportional limit, what is elastic limit, what is yield point, what is ultimate strength, and what is breaking strength, and what is meant by fracture. Okay, all these things we have discussed in the previous session, and also we have discussed what is meant by percentage of elongation and what is meant by reduction in area, percentage reduction in area. All these things we have discussed in the previous session. And in this session, we are going to discuss another testing of materials. Those are nothing but, see here, what we are going to discuss in today's session. Here we are going to discuss the shear strength. So how to find out the shear strength of a material. So shear strength of a material, and later we will find out the impact strength and toughness of a material by conducting impact test. So simply speaking, what we are having a shear test here, and we are having a impact test here. So in this session, we are going to discuss the procedure for to conduct a shear test and the procedure to conduct a impact test to find out the impact strength as well as to find out the shear strength of a material. Okay. So before going into that test procedure, we should know that what is meant by shear strength and what is meant by impact strength. Okay. So those things we will discuss first, and later we will enter into the procedure to be followed to find the shear strength and impact strength of a material. See here. If you see the definition of shear strength, so we know that the strength is the main property, that is main mechanical property, already we have discussed in the previous sessions. So in strength, we are having tensile strength, compression strength, and shear strength. So it is one of the important mechanical property. So what is meant by this shear strength? How we can define this shear strength? If you see here, if you see the definition, what we are having here, we can define in two ways. So both are same, but only some meaning may be different, but they gives the same concept. If you see here, what is meant by shear strength? If you see the first definition, we are having two definitions here. And if you go for the first definition, what you are having, it is the force required for a unit area to produce the fracture when it is applied on a vertical plane to the cross sectional of the material. So what it indicates, so how you are applying the force, you are applying the force in such a way that it should act in the vertical plane onto the cross sectional of the material. That means you are applying a transverse load, simply saying. So you are applying a transverse load. So how can you say that? It is the ability of the material to resist transverse loads without fracture. So if you see the first definition and if you see the second definition, in the first definition, how we are defining, we are defining the force. It is the force required per unit area. So already it per unit area means it is nothing but strength or stress. So how much load you are applying per unit area to get a fracture, when it is applying in the vertical plane and to the cross section of the material. So for that cross section of the material, you are applying the load in a vertical plane to get a fracture. That load per unit area is known as shear strength. So in the similar way, the second definition, if you see the second definition, in the second definition, what you are having, it is the ability of the material to resist transverse loads. What is meant by transverse load? So here, in this case, the loads are acting in the vertical plane. Okay, so it is the ability of the material to resist transverse loads without failure is known as shear strength. So we can define either way. You can write the first definition or you can write the second definition. Both gives the same concept. Okay, so what is the first definition? We will see once again. So the force required per unit area. So how much force is required per unit area to get a fracture, to produce a fracture when it is applied on a vertical plane to the cross section of the material, to the cross sectional area of the material. So how much force is required per unit area to reduce a fracture when it is applied on a vertical plane to get onto the cross sectional area of the material. So in the similar way, so the same concept we can define in another way, that is nothing but it is the ability of the material to resist transverse load. So the transverse load is nothing but which is acting in the vertical plane in this case. Without fracture is known as shear strength. So you are applying some load. The material can bear that load. That is nothing but a transverse load. That ability is known as its shear strength. So in this way, so this is the easiest definition. This is the ability of a material to resist transverse loads. It is the ability of a material to resist transverse load is known as its shear strength. Already we have defined strength. It is the ability of the material to resist loads, general loads. And if you define tensile strength, it is the ability of the material to resist tensile loads. And if you go for the compression strength, it is the ability of the material to resist compressive loads. Similarly, here it is the ability of the material to resist transverse load is known as shear strength. So it is the easiest definition to write. And if you go for the first definition, it is somewhat typical compared to the second one. So, but both the definitions give the same concept. And coming to the shear test. So how to perform shear test and what are the things we have to concentrate and how many types of shear tests are there? These things we will see here. See here, if you go for the shear test, one by one we will see. Specimen is tested for its shear strength by single or a double shear test. So we are having two types of shear tests. First one is single shear test and second one is double shear test. Single shear test and double shear test. And in each of the tests, the specimen is clamped in a device while the remaining portion is subjected to shear load by means of a suitable die. So how you are going to perform the test, whether it is single shear test or a double shear test. See, you have to clamp the specimen. So on what specimen you are going to perform this test, you have to clamp that specimen onto the UTM machine. So on the UTM machine, you have to clamp that specimen. See here, in each test, whether it is single shear test or a double shear test, the specimen should be clamped on a device, okay, on a device which is attached to the UTM, and the remaining portion should be subjected to shear load. That means you are having some hanging portion. On that hanging portion, by taking a suitable clearance, we have to apply the shear force. That means transverse load you have to apply by using a suitable die you will apply. So when you apply the load, what will happen? The transverse load will be applied onto the specimen and it will get fractured. Okay, so the bar is nothing but here the specimen generally of rectangular cross section about 25 mm by 50 mm will be used. So what is the size of the specimen? Generally we will use 25 by 50 mm size specimen can be used to conduct this shear test. I'm repeating once again what are the things we have covered here. So here the shear test can be performed in two ways, either single shear test or a double shear test. If you perform a single shear or a double shear, first what we have to do, we have to fix the specimen. That means fixing means it should be clamped. It should be clamped onto the device, okay, and the remaining portion. So you are having a specimen, some portion is clamped onto the device which is attached to the UTM, and the remaining portion is subjected to transverse load, and how the transverse load are applied by using a suitable die. Okay, so generally these transverse loads are applied by using a suitable die and which is subjected to shear load. So it is overhanging, we can say it is hanging. So on that place, you are what you are applying, you are applying a suitable shear force by applying a suitable die. So what is the size of this specimen? So generally, we will take a specimen of size 25 mm by 50 mm can be used for this shear test. And if you go for next, see this is the shear test. In a single shear test, so first already we have discussed, we are having two types of shear test. First one is a single shear and second one is double shear. So how the procedure will be for single shear test, we will discuss here with a diagram. If you see the diagram, so how the specimen is loaded onto the device, that means how the specimen is clamped onto the device which is attached to the UTM. See here, in a single shear test, the specimen, if you see here, in a single shear test, the specimen is clamped in a base. If you see here, this is the base, and the load is applied at the projected end. See, projected end. If you see here, if you see this one, if you see here, you are having, this is the specimen, you are having. So it is clamped here, this is the base, and it is clamped here and here. You are having two clamps here, and this is the projected part. This is the projected part you are having. So this is the projected part, and you are taking some clearance here. How much clearance should be given from the edge to apply the load? It is 0.125 mm. 0.125 mm clearance should be given from the edge while applying the load. How the load will be applied? By using a suitable die, we will apply the load. So when the load is applied, if you see here, this is the cross section and this is the lengthwise, this is the length for this component, but you are applying load in this way. So that means it is a transverse load. So you are applying the transverse load, and what will happen at this portion? At this portion, what will happen? Shear will take place and the specimen will be broken into two pieces. That means fracture will occur. So how much load it can bear without fracture will become its shear strength. So this is the procedure to find out the shear strength of a material. I'm repeating once again. So how to perform a single shear test? Okay, here we are having a diagram. So by using this diagram, we can explain how to perform a single shear test. See here, we are having, you have to clamp the specimen onto a base. You have to clamp the specimen onto the base. See here, you are having two clamps and it is clamped to the base and which is attached to the UTM. And later you are having a projection part here. In the specimen, you are having some projection part here. On that projection part, we have to apply the transverse load. Okay, so to apply the transverse load, we have to give some clearance, that is 0.125 mm from the end, and you are applying the transverse load by using a suitable die. When you apply the load, what will happen? The load will act along this, about this cross section. So at this cross section, the load will act. So what will happen? As the load is increasing, what will happen? This will shear out here, like this, it will be shear out. Okay, so in this way, we will going to find out the shear strength. So how we can define a shear strength? It is nothing but the ability of the transverse load, which can it able to bear without fracture, is known as its a shear strength. See here, if you see this one, So you are applying the load, and at some point, what will happen? The fracture will take place. So how much load it can bear without fracture will become its shear strength. So in this way, we will find out the single shear strength for a test specimen. So what is the size of the test specimen? Generally, it is 25 by 50 mm. It is a flat, and for that flat, you are applying the load in a vertical plane, that is transverse load you are applying, and the remaining portion is clamped to the base, and only projection on the projection part you are applying the load by using a suitable die. This is single shear test. And coming to the next, double shear test. See this one. This is the double shear test. So what will happen in this double shear test, and what is the difference between compared to the single shear test? We will discuss here. See, if you see the diagram, any difference is there? See, there is a difference here. In the previous one, you are having only projected part, but here you are not having any projected part. Only in between two clamps, you are having some portion of the specimen is there without supports, without support of the base. Okay, there we are applying the transverse load. See here, in a double shear test, the specimen is extended to bridge the gap between the dies. Bridge the gap between the dies. So here it is extended. So this is the die portion here. You are applying the load by using a die. So this is the die portion, and it is filling the gap. That means this die portion is filled here, and you are having this extension is here, and it is clamped here. So what is happening here, we will discuss. So in a double shear test, the specimen is extended to bridge the gap. So you are having a gap here in the previous one, but you are not having any gap here because you are filling that gap, and you are having another clamping here. So when you apply the load, shear will take place at both the ends. So that's why it is called as double shear test. So as usual, what you done in the single shear test, same thing can be done here. So first you have to take the specimen, and you have to clamp it to the base. But see here, the projection part is not here. It is clamped. It is bridging the gap between the bearing, between the die. So this is the die portion. So it is the filling the gap. So here you are having two clamps. Here you are having, if you see here you are having, this is one clamp, and this is one more clamp. So here this side you are having two clamps, and this side you are having one clamp, and in between you are having a portion on where you are applying the load by using a die. So this is your die portion, and here the gap is filled here by using your specimen. So when you apply the load, similarly you have to take the clearance as usual, that is 0.125 mm here, and here also 0.125 mm clearance. So both the ends you have to take a clearance of 0.125 mm from the edges, and you have to apply the load by using your suitable die. And when you apply the load, what will happen? So what happened in the previous one, and what will happen here? See here, what will happen? Shear will take place here, and shear will take place here. So both the ends, the shear will take place. So that means two ends are shearing, that is called double shearing. So that's why we are having double shear test. That's why we can call it as double shear test. Here two ends are under shear when the load is applied. Okay, I'm repeating again. So there is a small difference between single shear test and double shear test. In single shear test, only one side shear will take place. In double shear test, both sides shear will take place. That's why it's called as the double shear test. So you have to keep clamp the specimen in such a way that it should bridge the gap between the die portion. So here you are clamping the specimen this side by using two clamps, and this side you are using by one clamp. Okay, and in between you are having a free portion of the specimen, and you are applying a load, that is transverse load, by applying a suitable die, and you are maintaining a clearance of 0.125 mm at both the ends. When you apply the load, what will happen? This portion, this side as well as this side will shear will take place, because you are having both the ends. So both the ends are there. So when you apply the shear load, when you apply the transverse force, what will happen? Both the ends will be under shear, and the specimen will undergo fracture. So because of this two shears at the ends, two ends, then we can call it as double shear test. Okay, so how to calculate the shear strength? These things we will discuss in the coming slides. If you see here, so how to find out the shear strength? What is the formula for that one? So already how we are defined, it is nothing but the transverse load by unit area. Transverse load is nothing but how much load you are applying in the transverse direction, that will become transverse load. So shear strength can be calculated. Shear strength is nothing but load applied by area of cross section in shear. So which area we have to consider? Which area we have to consider? The area which is under shear. Okay. So in double shear test, the force and the area of the cross section will be considered as double, and but the result of the shear strength is same, because you are having for one section the force is same, and you are having a shear, and this also you are having a force and shear. So the shear strength will be same in the both the cases. So first we should understand how to find out the shear strength. What is the formula for that one? So generally we know that for strength is load by unit area of cross section. Here also you are having, if you see, shear strength is equal to load applied by area of cross section in shear. So how much area is in shear, that will be considered to calculate the shear strength. Okay. So if you take the double shear test also, we can get the same shear strength, because the load is double. That means for every shear we will take the load. So load by area, and here also load by area. So what you will get? You will get the same shear strength when you have this shear strength calculation. So here the important point is, what is the formula for shear strength? So shear strength is nothing but, that is load applied, that is transverse load divided by area of cross section in shear. So the cross section in shear we should be considered. Otherwise you will get another result. So that's why that is very, very important. Which area we have to consider? The area under shear. And next, so that is regarding shear strength. And the next one is impact strength. If you come to the impact strength, first we should understand what is meant by impact load. So what is meant by impact load? We should understand impact load is nothing but loads that are applied suddenly. Okay. So when you apply loads suddenly, then it is called as impact load. So what is meant by impact strength? So it is the ability of the material to resist impact loads without fracture. So when you apply shock or sudden loads, then it is called as impact load. And if it is able to withstand that shock or sudden load, then we can call it as it is impact strength. So first we have to understand what is meant by impact load, and later we have to understand what is meant by impact strength. So what is meant by impact load? Impact load is nothing but sudden or shock loads. So what is meant by impact strength? It is the ability of the material to resist sudden or shock loads. Sudden or shock loads is known as impact strength. So what is the procedure to find out impact strength? Any different types of methods are there, we will discuss in the coming slide. See here. So the behavior of material and dynamic loading may differ their behavior under static and gradually increasing loads. So here we should understand one important point, why we have to consider this impact strength. Already we have calculated tensile strength and compression strength, but why we are not relying on tensile strength and compression strength? Why we are calculating this impact strength? Because see here, sometimes because of this dynamic loading, the component may fail at earlier stresses, because they may not they may not withstand the sudden load as compared to your static loads. So they may exhibit more strength at the static loads. They may not withstand sudden loads. They may fail at the earlier stage. So that's why we have to consider this impact strength for calculate in the applications of dynamic loading. So that is the importance of this impact strength. That's why we have to go for the impact test. Otherwise, they may fail before your expectation. If you rely on the static test, that means if you rely on the tensile test and compression test, those results will not valid when it is subjected to dynamic type of loading. So that's why we have to go for impact test. So a material may be very hard and strong and may not be suitable to withstand sharp blows. Sometimes what will happen? The material may be very strong at static load, but it may not able to withstand these dynamic loads, that is sharp blows, that means sudden loads. Okay, so that's why we have to calculate impact strength, where we can use these materials in dynamic loading types. So generally material performance vary with the rate of loading like strength and toughness. So the material performance may be differentiate, it varies based on the loading, type of loading and toughness. That means strength and toughness will be changed, okay, based on the loading. So that's why we have to concentrate. So that is the need of the impact test. So why we have to go for, what is the need of impact strength? Because it is not uniform at a static as well as dynamic loading. So it will not valid when you calculate loads at a static level and you and apply those results to the dynamic loading, it is not valid. So that's why we have to calculate the impact strength at dynamic loading. So what is impact strength? See here. If you see here, material exhibits poor performance under dynamic loading or shock loads. Sometimes what I told you, they may exhibit good strength at static loading, but they will not exhibit good strength at the dynamic loading. They may be poor, they may fail at the early stage. Here it is required to know the strength and toughness varies with impact loads or shock loads. So how the strength varies when the shock loads or impact loads are acting on it, we should know it. The principle implied to impact test is to observe certain amount of energy before it breaks or fracture. So which principle is implied? Which principle is used to find out the impact strength? Okay. So this is the principle generally we will use to find out the impact strength. See, the principle implied in impact strength is that material absorbs a certain amount of energy before it fractures or breaks. So this concept is used to find out the impact strength. What is that concept? Whenever a material breaks, what will happen? It absorbs some energy. It absorbs some energy. So that based on that energy, we can say that how much impact strength is there. Okay. So how much capacity is there to absorb the energy. So based on that one, we can say that how much strong, how much impact strength it is having. Okay. So this is the main principle. So in this one, first, what are the points we should concentrate here? So the first point is why we should go for impact test. Because materials may exhibit good strength at static loading, but they may not be good at dynamic loading. That means they may fail at the earlier stage. So to know the behavior of material at impact, that is at a dynamic loading, we have to perform impact test. So how to perform the impact test and what is the principle, main principle used to find to conduct a impact test? The main principle is whatever the material, when you apply the load, before going to break, what will happen? It will absorb some energy before fracture. So how much energy it can absorb is based on its strength. So we will use that principle to find out the impact strength of a material. See here. Therefore, quantity of energy that is absorbed is the characteristics of physical nature of a material. So from this one, how much quantity, how much value, that is quantity, how much joules or kilojoules of energy it can absorb is will become, it is a characteristic physical nature of the material. So that gives the impact strength, that gives the impact strength. So if it is brittle, it breaks more readily and absorbs less quantity of energy. If you take a brittle material and if you apply sudden load, what will happen? It absorbs a less amount of energy and breaks. That means its impact strength is less. And if you take a ductile material or a tough material, what will happen? It takes more energy, it absorbs more energy, and later it goes for the fracture. So it needs more energy to get fracture. That means its impact strength is more. And next, methods of impact testing. On how many types of tests are there? Impact strength tests are there. Here we are having two types of standard impact tests are there. That is Charpy impact test and IJAD impact test. What are the two types? See here, we are having Charpy impact test and IJAD impact test. Charpy impact test and IJAD impact test. Charpy impact test. If you see the diagram, so this is the procedure for, this is the arrangement of equipment for both Charpy and IJAD, but only the loading and the arrangement of the hammer will be different, but all the procedure will be similar, both Charpy and IJAD impact test. So what is the general description of this equipment? Just we will see here. See here, you are having a base. On that one, you are having a platform, you are having a vertical column, you are having. On that column, you are having a hammer. See, you are having a swing hammer. So it can be swinged about this point. About this fulcrum, it can be swinged. See here, it can be swinged like this. Okay, and you are having a scale here. You are having a scale here. You are having, if you see, you are having a hand wheel here to place the specimen. So this is the specimen you are placing here. Okay, so this is the specimen for Charpy test. Okay, so how the specimen will look like? So you are having a specimen like this and you are having a V notch here, and the load is applied back side of the notch, and not on the same side, that is back side of the specimen, that is in the Charpy impact test. So you have to keep the specimen here, and you have to lift the hammer to certain height, and you have to release it. When the hammer hits the specimen, suddenly what will happen? The specimen will fracture into two pieces, and you will get a value here, how much of energy is absorbed during this fracture, that can be taken here. And from that one, we will find out the impact strength of the material. So this is the general procedure for Charpy as well as impact test, but only the loading of the specimen and keeping the swing hammer will be different in different tests. I am repeating once again here. See here, you are having an anvil for placing the specimen. So you will place the specimen here, and you are having a swing hammer here. So this is the hammer portion. So this is the swing hammer. It can be swing about this fulcrum, and you are having a scale here, which is calibrated, and you will lift the, and you are having a specimen like this. For this specimen, you are having a V notch, and load is applied on the back side of the specimen. That means on the back side of the V notch. When you suddenly, so you will raise the swing hammer to certain height, and you will keep at that height, and suddenly you will release that hammer. So what will happen? It will fall suddenly onto the specimen. Because of that, the specimen will fracture into two pieces. While the fracture will take place, what will happen? The material may absorb some energy. That energy can be calculated by taking a value from the scale. Okay, based on that energy absorption, we can say that how much impact strength it is having. So the similar procedure can be adapted for IJAD impact test, but only the difference is loading the specimen and placing the swing hammer will be different. And coming to IJAD test. So if you see a typical IJAD test, it is also similar to that one. So this is the specimen for sharp impact test. Okay. So what is the specimen we are having? See here, this is the notch. This is the notch. Okay. So, and this is, so it is symmetric. The notch is symmetric and the angle is 45 degrees. Okay. So these are the general dimensions of a specimen that is used for Charpy test. Okay. So here the load is applied on the back side of the V notch. It is loaded into the Charpy impact testing machine. And so in which way it will be loaded? It will be loaded as simply supported beam. We will discuss at the end. And next comes to IJAD impact test. So here in IJAD impact test, what you are having, you will place this specimen as a cantilever and the load is applied on the same side of the notch. Okay, that is the difference between your Charpy impact testing and IJAD impact testing. So these are the dimensions. If you see, the dimensions are different compared to your Charpy test specimen. So these are the general dimensions for a IJAD impact test specimen, and the V notch is placed in such a way that the hammer should strike onto the same side of the V notch. So Charpy test, how the Charpy test will be conducted and how to calculate the impact strength. So the pendulum, swings on after breaking the specimen, that is through height which is measured. So what it means, you are keeping the pendulum at a certain height. So you are having a hammer, that is pendulum hammer. So you are keeping it at a certain height and you are releasing it. When you hit the specimen, what will happen? It will fracture into two pieces. So you are lifting to certain height and you are releasing it. After impact, it will reach to certain height. So these two heights are very, very important in calculating the impact strength. If you see the formula, so the impact energy absorbed in breaking the specimen is calculated by the relation. So what is the relation we are having? The relation is E is equal to W into H1 minus H2, that is kg meter. So why we are getting kg meter here? W is the weight of the hammer. So weight is in kgs, and H1 minus H2, that is nothing but height of the hammer before hitting the specimen and after hitting the specimen. So that means in meters. So E is equal to W into H1 minus H2. That means the difference in heights gives into your weight of the hammer gives the energy absorbed. So where W is the weight of the pendulum and H is the H1, that is H is the height of the fall of the pendulum. Okay. So H1 minus H2 is the height of the fall of the pendulum. That means how much change in the height will occur. That means before and after impact. I'm repeating once again here. We will discuss elaborately once again. See here. What we are doing in the Charpy impact test, we are loading the specimen and we are raising the pendulum hammer to a certain height, that is H1, and we are releasing it. After releasing, what will happen? It will hit the specimen and the specimen fractures into two pieces. After fracture, the pendulum will swings, and when after fracture, how much height it will travels, that gives the H2 value. So you are having H1 as well as you are having H2, and you know the weight of the hammer. So if you know W and if you know H1 and if you know H2, then E is equal to W into H1 minus H2. That gives the energy. That gives the impact energy that is absorbed during the test. So how much energy is absorbed by the material before fracture is given by this equation. E is equal to W into H1 minus H2. So here W is in kgs. So generally weight will be in kgs and height will be in meters. So what are the units for that one? Kg meter. So kg meter you will get for this impact energy here. So H2. And next. So is there any correction? Correction means any losses are there. We are taking that is W into H1 minus H2, but we may have some air friction, we may have some bearing friction, that means uh, rotational friction we may have. So we have to consider those frictions in the consideration to get accurate results. So to get accurate results, we have to consider the energy losses. How much energy losses are there? So what are the general energy losses we have to consider? So to get a correction value, what we are having, we have to consider the machine friction as well as air resistance. So as the pendulum is moving, so it is attached to a certain point. So there will be having some, you are having some machine friction as well as you are having air resistance when the pendulum is moving. So if you consider those things, then if you implement those energy losses into the equation, you will get the exact values of energy absorption. So how to implement those things, you will see here. So the actual energy absorbed is given by the equation. E A is equal to, that is actual energy absorbed is equal to E minus EF. So E is nothing but W into H1 minus H2, but this EF is nothing but energy losses by considering the machine friction or mechanical friction or and this air resistance. By calculating this air resistance and machine friction, we can uh, subtract that losses, energy losses from the initial energy absorption. So that will give the actual energy absorbed. EA is equal to E minus EF. So what is impact strength? How to find out the impact strength here? So you are finding out the energy absorbed. So if you know the energy absorbed, by using this equation, we can find out the impact strength, that is energy in fracture divided by cross-sectional area at the notch. So how much cross-sectional area you are having at the notch, and what is the energy that is absorbed in the fracture? That is nothing but, already we have calculated, E minus EF. So what is the cross-sectional area at notch? That is A. So here you are getting kilojoules per meter square. Already you are having this E minus EF, it is nothing but kg per meter. Kg meter you are having, and area is meter square. So from that one, what you are getting? You are getting kilojoules per meter square. So in this way, we will find out the impact strength. So I'm repeating once again here. If you see here, so how to find out the impact strength? Generally, when the pendulum is released to certain height and after fracture, it reaches to certain height. So initial height is H1 and after impact, you are having a height H2. So the weight of the pendulum is W. So the energy absorbed will be given as W, E is equal to W into H1 minus H2. This is the general energy absorption. But we are not considering the losses here. If you want to get accurate results, you have to consider the losses. So we are having frictional losses and air resistance. So your pendulum is attached to certain at a certain point, and you are having their frictional losses. So we have to consider those frictional losses, and the pendulum is moving in the air. So you are having some air resistance. So if you consider those two factors, that is machine friction as well as air resistance, then you will get the actual energy absorbed. What is, how much actual energy is absorbed? That is nothing but EA is equal to E minus EF. So how to find out the impact strength? So to find out the impact strength here, so already we have calculated energy in the fracture, that is actual energy absorbed, divided by cross-sectional area at the notch. So how much cross-sectional area you are having at the notch, that should be calculated. So from that one, we will find out energy in fracture divided by cross-sectional area at the notch. That is nothing but E minus EF divided by area of cross section. So here the units will be kilojoules per meter square. So in this way, we will find out the impact strength of a material by using this Charpy test. So this is the formula for Charpy test, that is impact strength is equal to E by A, E is equal to W into H1 minus H2 by A. So, but here nowadays you are getting new machines to find out the Charpy, to find out the impact test by using Charpy impact test method. Here you will get the direct energy absorption values in joules. So you will get the direct values in joules. By taking the reading, you can find out easily the energy absorption values. So that is the, nowadays you are getting the type of machines. So the same procedure can be adapted for IJAR test also, but only what is the difference? In the difference is only in loading the specimen. So what are the things we have discussed till now? We will discuss here. See here, we have discussed how to conduct shear test, whether it is a single shear or double shear. So single shear, one side shear takes place, double shear, two sides will shear takes place. So here in shear test, we are applying the transverse load. When you apply the transverse load, what will happen? The fracture will take place. That means shear will take place at the cross section. So the vertical loads are acting here. In a single shear test, we are fixing the specimen onto the base by using clamps, and the projected part is subjected to shear loads. And when the fracture will take place, the strength, the shear strength will be calculated by using how much transverse load are applied and what is the cross sectional area under shear. From that one, we will find out the shear strength. If similarly, we will find out the shear strength for a double shear also. So you are fixing the specimen onto the base by using the clamps on the both the sides, and you are bridging the gap of the die. So when you apply the force, transverse force, when you apply the transverse load by taking a clearance of 0.125 mm on both the ends, and when the load is applied, transverse load, and fracture will take place, here both sides fracture will take place, both sides shear will take place. From that one, we will find out the shear strength, that is same as usual, that is how much load is applied, how much transverse load is applied, divided by area of cross sectional at the shear, that is under shear, we can say. So in this way, we will find out the shear strength of the material. And later we have discussed what is impact test. Before going that, what is meant by impact strength, impact load. What is meant by impact load is nothing but sudden or shock load is known as impact load. What is meant by impact strength? Impact strength is nothing but when you sudden or shock load is applied on a material, it is the ability of the material to resist that type of load without fracture is known as its impact loading. So what are the, how many types of impact testing procedures are there? Here we are having two types of testing procedure, that is Charpy impact test and IJAR impact test. If is there any difference? So here we will see some difference between Charpy and IJAR test. So only few points we will discuss here. If you see here, notched specimen is placed as a simply supported beam. So in the Charpy test, how you will place the specimen as a simply supported beam? You should remember this word, simply supported beam. That means you are just supporting it. But, and the pendulum is allowed to strike from the fixed height on the opposite side. So you are having a V notch, and to the opposite side of that V notch, you are going to impact it. You are going to apply the impact load. Okay. So from the certain height, you will release the pendulum, and that will be impacted on the other side of the notch that is provided. Whereas in the IJAR test, the notched specimen is held in a vise in the form of a cantilever beam. So what is meant by cantilever? One end is fixed and other end is free. Okay. But here the load is applied, the impact load is applied on the same side of the V notch. So that is the difference between HRP test and IJAT test. Okay, so we are dropping the same pendulum to a certain height, but we are keeping the specimen in the manner of cantilever beam, and the load is applied on the same side of the notch what you have provided. But in the Charpy test, it is different. In the Charpy test, you are placing the specimen as a simply supported beam, and the load is applied on the other side of the notch that is provided. On the other side of the notches that is provided. So that is the difference between HRP test and IJAD test. So we will see some quizzes here. So the ability of material to resist transverse load without fracture is known as, what is that one? Shear strength. Okay. So transverse load means shear strength. Shear test can be conducted on, where we will conduct on UTM. In shear test, the required clearance, how much clearance will be given? 0.125 mm. The principle employed in impact test material, certain amount of energy absorbs before it takes. So absorbs. So this principle is used. The type of load applied in impact test is, that is impact load, that is suddenly applied load or shock load. Impact load. So sudden applied load or shock load. So here the frequently asked questions, what is meant by shear strength, and explain how shear test is conducted with a neat sketch. What is the difference between single shear and double shear test, and state the difference between Charpy and IJAD test. Explain the procedure to adapted in the impact test, and draw the dimension sketch of a test specimen Charpy and IJAD test, and explain the Charpy and IJAD test. So with this one, we are closing today's session.